Welcome back to Bread and Butter, where we are serving up the basics for Hearthstone improvement. This is episode 108. I'm Tito Santana. Doc will not be with us this week, but I am joined by two very amazing and recurring guests, two of my favorites, DragonRider, host of the Doctor 3 podcast, the TCG Roundtable, and also caster of Worlds. How are you this week?
Hi, I'm doing well. What an intro. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we got to make sure that people know who you are. And we have Pylet. Pylet, how are you?
Yep, I'm just doing well. I'm just I don't have a fancy intro like Dawn. I'm just a guy who keeps showing up all the time.
And we really appreciate it. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the current meta, what lies in the future, and our main topic will be your mindset. So, Dragon Rider, what have you been doing in Hearthstone lately?
I have been just trying out a few of the different kind of meta decks, just kind of seeing what's up, seeing what's out there, and trying to get my bearings with them because I feel like the current decks are a little bit different than what I usually play. So, just been trying to try them out and try a couple different things and see how it goes.
So, when you say they're different than how you play, like, you want to dive into that a little bit? Like, what do you mean?
They're not aggro. How's that?
That's fair. There are some aggro out there, but that's not your cup of tea.
Yeah, not quite. Not what I enjoy playing, at least. So it's a little bit different. Have to kind of adjust to it.
All right, Pylet. How about yourself? What have you been up to in Hearthstone?
Yeah, just kind of playing some different decks. Haven't had a ton of time to play, but I kind of turned it around from last month. I think last time I was on, I mentioned I was just having a miserable month. I was at like a 35 to 40% win rate for quite a while and just couldn't get anything going. I cruised to Legend this month, entered top 1K with 11x, with about 30 to 40 games played. So that was much different. Played a little bit of Protoss Mage, played a lot of Pain Priest. Don't have full stats for that because a lot was on my phone, but I went on like a 7-win streak with that to cruise up, and then finished the climb with Location Warlock, which is a very strange deck. It's a very unintuitive deck because it's like, okay, control 8/8s, and then you just kind of go from there. So that's been fun to learn, and then played a little bit of BGs here and there. Tito and I normally try to get into duos here and there when we can. Played a couple of solo BGs by myself, or when I have had time. Finally got to play some dragons that weren't Terragosa and Poet again. I got an early Nether Drake, the one that gives attack at the end of turn and upgrades. Early Hunter of Gatherers that gives health when it gets attack. An early Stormbringer that gets attack when others get them. And just kind of went from there. I tried to look at what my stats were on my phone, but I couldn't read them because they all overlapped. So that's probably a good thing. But that was fun to do. I won that game as Alex Straza. So good time.
And we also had a game of duos where Pylet took Innie and I took the nameless one, and he said, this is not going to work because we're both going mechs, and we took first place. So Pylet 0, Tito 1.
It shouldn't have worked. It shouldn't have worked, and it did, and it upsets me. But
it upsets him. It upsets him because it means that I'm going to be encouraged to do similar things in the future. And I have now statistics to rely upon and say, hey, we won him with it last time. I myself, outside of the duos that we just talked about, I have been trying to climb. I am D4, D3 right now. I forget where. But I've been trying to find the deck that clicks with me because that's always kind of like a problem when the meta shifts. I've been playing a lot of Grunter Hunter, which I really like. I've tried to mix it up a little bit and try a bunch of different decks. So I obviously have tried some Paladin. That hasn't been super great. I've played Donkey's Demon Hunter, which is good for Donkey if you're a top 20 player in the world, but not as good for the rest of us. It's fun. It's got potential, but it's one of those decks that it's almost there. Like every game, it's kind of like when you get when you have a really bad round of golf and then you like birdie the last hole or par the last hole and you're like, okay, I know how to, this is fun. It's one of those decks where every time you're just a half a turn away from turning that corner and winning and you don't. But you're close enough where it keeps you hooked and you're like, I'm gonna get it next time. And then you're like, why am I 2-10? But it's a fun deck. Grunter Hunter is fun. I've switched around a bit. I went to the non-grunter Grunter Hunter, so it's more just the hand buff with the Zerg, and that's fun. I've played a little bit of the Shaman, that's a really good deck. But I also have tried the Protoss Mage, which is also fun. I haven't been as good at it, but I've been kind of average. And right now, I am joining some of the masses. And most people are playing Shaman, but I'm also playing the Death Knight. The Death Knight is really fun, and just increasingly growing big Zerg and playing what do you call it? Death Growl, which is one of those cards I always want to play, and I love it. And it's been fun. That's what I've been playing. But Pilot, I know it's been a busy time for you. What are you doing outside of the world of Hearthstone?
Yeah, just kind of. I feel like I always say every time's a busy time at work, and I'm just kind of accepting that that's always a true statement. So we've been working on our winter spring musical a little bit, so rehearsals with that. Trying to get the high school groups prep for our kind of adjudicated events or contests while missing a ton of school because we've had a lot more weather than we've had previous winters. I think we've already missed more days this year than we did last school year total. So kind of going through that and seeing what we can get done. But that's been going well. Ended up actually traveling for work. Last week we had our state music conference, so I was out of town for a few days, but that's always a great refresher of just go, meet people, see, music teacher friends that I haven't talked to in a while, get a bunch of new ideas. And it's always at a great time where everyone's just down and kind of trudging through January and February and looking for some light at the end of the tunnel to get through the winter. And it's always a great refresh. So I had a good time with that.
Well, excellent. How about yourself, Dawn? I know you've been pretty busy. What have you been doing outside of the world of Hearthstone?
Well, a week and a half ago, my husband and I just got 2 puppies. So been very busy with taking care of 8-week-old puppies, and they are white lab, mostly white lab with a little bit of Great Pyrenees. So they're going to be probably a little bit bigger, but yeah, they've been a handful. And then in other card games and stuff, I've been the Wild Hearts Kickstarter just ended, so kind of was getting stuff for that and getting that all situated at the end there, and excited for the Wild Hearts team on that completion. And then I've been getting ready for some Star Wars Unlimited tournaments as well. I'm actually competing in a planetary qualifier this coming Saturday, which basically is kind of like the lowest, beginning level tournaments. And then after that, it'll go to regional and nationals. And then worlds, which I did just get my husband and I's tickets to go to the Star Wars World Championship in Vegas in July. So very excited for that. But also with that, kind of been planning some stuff because that is literally the weekend right before Gen Con, which we're also going to. So it's going to be a very busy end of July and start of August. So all that travel plans and getting things situated with that. So that's what I've been up to. Been quite busy, feels like.
My heart kind of hurts just thinking about the amount of money you're going to have to pay for dog boarding in the next few weeks for those, if that's what you're doing. But obviously,
no, we have the fur baby grandparents. That's my mom will be watching them hopefully while we're at Gen Con, because my husband's dad is going to Gen Con with us, and while we're in Vegas for the Star Wars tournament, his dad will be watching the dogs and taking care of them. So luckily we have that taken care of.
And if they're watching the puppies, though, that may be the last time. They're usually like, I'm not doing this again. Don't you? You're
Yeah.
always saying, I don't have enough time. I'm busy. I got these things, this things. I do too much. And you decided the solution to that was to bring 2 puppies into the world, into your house.
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually a surprise for me. My husband texted me one night and was like, I need a nerdy name for a girl white lab puppy. And I was like, okay, why? I gave him some suggestions and he's like, well, I guess I'll have to name her. And I'm like, why? And then so he found out his boss's friend had some puppies, like a litter of puppies that they were trying to give good homes to so that they didn't have to, send them to shelters or anything like that. So then it was like all of a sudden they said, oh, they have 3 female puppies. So I messaged his boss's wife and was like, can we have 2 of them? So look, we saved these puppies. We're heroes. That's how we're looking at it. Oh, they fit right in though.
I'm sure they do.
Which has been good.
Okay. So for myself, I have been working my new job. I've been there for I'm into my 5th week now, I think. So we have the job, we get paychecks. It's now kind of becoming standard. I starting if it wasn't for things going on in the executive branch of our government, I'd feel a little bit more solid. But you got to hold your breath still right now, and apparently not use paper straws. So we'll get through it, and hopefully we'll learn what's going on and just steady the course. And I'm hoping that in a year from now, I am still doing this because I really like my job. I like the team. I'm excited about what's coming. And outside of that, at the end of the month, I will be going on vacation. The family is doing what we always seem to do, and that's go to Disney World. So that week, in 2 weeks, there won't be an episode. I'm not going to try to rush around and record. I'm hoping after I come back, we have at least maybe the announcement of an announcement. I know we already know what the name of the set is. I can't remember it off the top of my head. They already gave us all the information for that last year. It'll be nice to see what's possibly coming, and we're getting close to rotation and stuff. So this is going to be exciting. And speaking of, we now have had the mini set for a little while. I want to get your thoughts. So, Pilot, how have you enjoyed this mini set and the mini set meta so far?
I've actually been enjoying it more than I thought I was going to after the first 48 hours. Took me a little bit to settle in, and I think things are so polarized right at the beginning. I even missed all the Shafar Hunter, shenanigans that were going on that got that banned. But it became so polarized so quickly. But it definitely branched out, and definitely the couple of nerfs that they did helped with that. Fizzle needed something just to prevent that playstyle. That's not something that you want to see, of a million ceaseless or gyms or whatever they want to do every game. But yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot. There is still quite a bit of deck variety, and there's still room even within each class. Most classes to play quite a few different decks or variations on them, which I think is a good thing, and it's difficult to do when there's so many cards in the pool.
And while they did nerf Fizzle, I'm still seeing it. Not a lot, but a lot. It still seems good. I mean, it's still a good card. You just can't go infinite. So,
Yes.
how about yourself, Dawn? How have you liked the mini set and the meta that's come with it?
Yeah. I actually feel a lot of the same ways that Pilot does. Like it at first I wasn't sure on it. Especially because of the Shafar stuff that I had started to see, but when I was watching streams I wasn't able to play it myself. But yeah, that was oh gosh, if this is what it's going to be like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, but they caught that quickly. But yeah, it's been pretty exciting for me because it's been okay, what do I want to play? What are some meta decks? It's oh, okay, I can play Hunter, I can play Shaman, I can play Druid, I could play Mage, I could play the Death Knight. There's a lot of stuff that there is to try and play, and I typically like those types of metas instead of when it's just like 2 or 3 decks that are at the top. So when there's more variety, I typically enjoy it more. So I have been enjoying this meta and trying to figure things out. It's like a puzzle that I've been trying to solve. So it's been fun.
I've liked it. I've liked it more than I thought I would. I think it really kind of finally brought starships where they needed to be. And I think that's why they weren't powerful on the onset because even though they're kind of different between the StarCraft starships and the earlier starships, I think that if the earlier starships hit more, we'd probably have much more starship fatigue than we do now. So I think it worked out pretty well. I haven't found the deck that I love, but I also haven't normally when I don't like a meta is when we're running into a particular control deck or two that is oh wait, like I don't mind control decks. I don't mind playing control decks. I just don't want to play the same control deck over time. So when it was like Blood Decay was the big thing year and a half ago or whatever it was, I hated that. I hated that deck. When Hydration Warrior was a big thing. Dungar Druid, even though I did get to Legend once with Dungar, I'm not gonna say I didn't do that, but um, like when you just see Dungar Druid after Dungar Druid after Dungar Druid, which I beat tonight after they played Hydration Station, which brought a Ziliax, and I still beat him on the next turn. That felt good. But like when we haven't seen that as much for a little while, we did, and I was seeing a lot of Druids and a lot of Warriors, but they seem to have thinned out. So as long as I'm seeing variety, even if I don't find the deck that I love, I still enjoy the meta. So yeah, I'm happy. I don't think it's the best meta in the world, but I definitely don't think it's bad either, and I think it's fairly good. So Dawn, what are your favorite decks been so far? Actually, hold on. Sorry, I jumped a question. Been your favorite faction so far, and then what's been your favorite deck?
Oh, that's tough because at first I thought I liked Zerg, which I probably still will say Zerg's my favorite, but I have really started to like Protoss stuff, which I didn't think I would. I thought the Protoss stuff was going to be a little too slow and just not like quite nearly as powerful, especially in like the early to mid game. But I think it actually has proved to be still okay and pretty decent, if not good, in those spots. So I'm probably still gonna say Zerg because Queen of Blades, and I'm a big StarCraft fan. So like the story and lore and characters, I'm like half my animals are named after StarCraft characters or units. So yeah, like I love StarCraft. So Queen of Blades, she's my girl, she's my bae. So I'm gonna go Zerg, but man, the Protoss mini set cards for Hearthstone have been swaying me a bit.
I like the meme that has the 3 Hydra heads, and 2 of them are really mean and serious, and one of them is like the goofy one, and it has like Zerg labeled as one, and Protoss labeled as one, and then Terran is the goofy one. That's how the meta's felt. But I've really enjoyed the Zerg as well, and I mean I've liked all of them. Like I wish Paladin was a little stronger. I don't know what you do with it because it has most of the same base cards as the other Terran sets, but for some reason it just hasn't landed. And it's kind of sad because not that I need a good Paladin set, like, but it's whenever you don't see classes, like you never see Paladin, you never see Demon Hunter. And those are 2 of my favorite classes. And to just not see them at all, not even like a, hey, let's try this fringe deck that might be okay. It's just not good. And yeah, it's a little sad, but, I think that I've liked Zerg the most. Kinda surprising to me, but it's just, when you can have turn 3 9/7s on the board, 2 of them, and, yeah, that's fun. How about yourself, Pilot? What's been your favorite faction, and what's been your favorite deck?
I think I fall very similar to where Dragon Rider did, to where Zerg has probably been my favorite. Protoss is close just because it's been interesting to see where Protoss has fallen other than Druid. That really hasn't taken off other than some of the hero power Druid using it. But that Pain Priest I was playing use just the 4-mana draw spell that summoned a charger and hallucination, just because it's extra damage, and more charge minions are good, especially if you do things like the Halo or Vol'jin to make them bigger and then copy them. That's a very fun play line. I did like 20 damage out of nowhere. But then Protoss Mage is just goofy. It's just Protoss Mage is my kind of deck. That is like the epitome of the pilot program, to where it's not great. It should lose a lot more than it actually does. But man, if the opponent just lets you have some time, it just wins the long game. I've won so many games where Shaman should have just killed me, but they were playing super creative with their starship, and instead of just hitting me with the 12 attack starship, they kept playing pieces, and then they died because they let me have time. So Zerg is probably still my favorite overall, just because I've enjoyed all the Zerg decks compared to all the Protoss decks, but it's very, very close.
I will say I'm kind of torn on the fact that Templar Rogue hasn't hit, because it looks so much fun, but I know we would hate it if it was like every other deck you saw. So I'm
Yes,
kind of glad it's out there, but
I
it's
have
I
I've hated it at the time that it's been good against me. I died on turn 5 to it. I got turn 4 Arcanon or something, or maybe they played the South one. Turn 5 make Archon cover artists, and I died. Something crazy.
well, it probably won't be as good once they obviously take Shadow Step out of the core set this upcoming rotation. But
Surely
speaking
this
of
time.
rotation, so Pilot, since we're talking to you already, what do you think the biggest surprise of this expansion has been? I mean, of this mini set, like, is what has surprised you?
So anyone who listened to me last time I yacked on this podcast, it would be Zerg, because I was very, very low on Zerg. I thought that all the Zerg cards were terrible other than Kerrigan. And I was wrong. I was very, very wrong. So that those have worked a lot better than I thought they would. Demon Hunter's struggling just because it's kind of in the spot of, I don't know if it's necessarily bad on a power level, like individual power level wise. It's just, the third or fourth or fifth best deck at what it does, and it's worse than all the other aggressive decks. It loses to all those, so there's no reason to play it. It doesn't have a niche yet in this meta. But yeah, I was very, very wrong on Zerg. Zerg Warlock is very good and very fun, as I talked about. So that's, yeah, I'll take my lumps there. I was wrong, very wrong.
I'm gonna say Zerg too, but only kind of a little differently. I thought Zerg was gonna be like super hyper aggro, and they are an aggro deck, but it's more almost mid rangey in a lot of times, where it's like you grow and you kind of you swarm, but it's not like overpowering like turn 3. Not that you can't do something crazy, but like it's not like as aggro as I thought it would be, right? So that's a little surprising to me, and I've really enjoyed the play style. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But what about yourself, Dawn? What has surprised you in this meta?
I'm gonna say something a little different, and I'm gonna say that what has surprised me has been the change in attitude, I guess. I feel like a lot of people, when the cards were revealed, a lot of people were kind of like, oh, these cards don't look good. This looks like it's going to suck as a mini set. Like, they're really kind of pissing on it, honestly. And I think a lot of people overall, Pilot's nodding and pointing to himself.
Yep, that
Uh,
was me.
yeah, and you weren't alone. You weren't alone for sure. There was a lot of people, I think, that were just kind of like these cards overall don't look exciting. But I was kind of like excited for them. Obviously, again, as someone who's like very into StarCraft and the lore and stuff, played through all the games. I was at the, at the stores like at midnight for the midnight releases of some of the Star Wars, or for some of the StarCraft games. So it's like, I was ready. But it's kind of turned around. I think a lot of people have kind of enjoyed the meta overall, have enjoyed the cards, have enjoyed seeing the different factions and the characters and that stuff in Hearthstone. So I think that's what surprised me the most, is kind of that flip of like oh, these cards don't look good, to all of a sudden, hey, actually, I do like this meta. I do like these cards overall, and what's happening with the decks in the meta.
Okay, this is not in the show notes, but I'm gonna make a statement, and I want you to agree or disagree. This has been the most impactful mini set we've ever gotten, outside of one or two cards, usually in a mini set that dominate the meta. That might be a problem. This is probably the most influential mini set that covers multiple different archetypes.
Agree.
Yeah, agree. I was about to make a statement about the exact same thing of it's been impressive and surprising how many different decks have come out of this, especially from cards that didn't individually look powerful, but you fully built new decks and archetypes, without completely squashing other ones in a mini set. That's very, very impressive in the 6th set meta. So 4 set, I could see it. 4 set, the size of mini set, that would make a huge difference. But at the end of a rotation cycle, that's really, really neat.
I think especially like the cohesiveness too. Like for me, that's, because like you said, sometimes we have kind of those standout cards, like individual cards, but this has been the most like cohesive. All of the cards seem to have like a purpose or use, or they work together much more than we've seen in the past. Like this almost feels to me like an expansion rather than a mini set.
Okay, but so that brings me to our final topic on this subject. We're about to hit rotation, about a month, month and a half, whatever it might be. We now have a bunch of new decks at the end of a six set meta that are pretty much standalone and self-contained and aren't going to rely. I'm sure there's cards here and there, but don't really rely on the set that's rotation. That's the sets that are rotating. So now that we're going to be going into a 4-set meta, are you concerned about the power level of where we're going to be going into a new 4-set meta, and that maybe, I mean, obviously we have no idea what the cards are going to look like yet, but are we concerned at all that maybe that doing Terran and Protoss and not Terran, I'm sorry, Protoss and Zerg things are still going to be the dominant thing to do going into the next expansion, or do you think it's going to be uh, just fine? What do you think, Don?
Oh, you're asking me first. I was gonna point to Pylet. Oh, let me point this way.
I can go first if you want me to.
All right,
I have opinions.
Go for it.
I'm not concerned. I typically would be when you get new decks at the end of a cycle that are this powerful and definitely the top of the meta, but they're still using a decent number of old cards. The core is still there, and for most of them, the win condition is still there, but they lose a ton of support pieces that get them there. So if you look at Shaman, it's going to lose Bouncer, it's going to lose Trusty Companion, it's going to lose some of the 1-drops, and it loses all those kind of in-between cards that let you, build up that starship while you're still putting on pressure. DK loses the Death Rattle stuff. It loses Death Growl, it loses Yodeler, it loses Reska. That's probably the biggest thing for any DK deck, as Tito celebrates. Hunter's probably the least hit by it, but it still loses enough of those, early cards, Sneaky Snakes, Titan Force Traps, all of those cards that have just been good cards that you put in any deck of that class that we had from the last year are going away. So the biggest question is, can you fill enough of those gaps? I think you can, but I don't think that they're going to be dominant in the way that we have seen some of these decks before that have been strong at the end of a cycle and coming into a 4-set rotation. I might be wrong again, so I probably will be, but that's just how this goes when they put a mic in front of your face.
And reminder, Ziliax isn't going anywhere. Don, what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say that I was not as concerned, but that now going second, now I feel like I'm just copying Pylet's answer.
No, please.
I was thinking that. He just said it much more eloquently than I was going to put it. But I think also another thing that's kind of important and impactful is a lot of the decks are losing not all of them are being played, but all of the gift cards are going to be going away as well, which even in like Shaman, that's a really like important card that's been seen in Druid. It's been seen in a lot of decks, right? So I think that the losing the gift cards as well is going to make a big impact. I think probably initially we will see a little bit of the like people still trying to make these decks work as we usually do. But depending on what comes in the next set, and right now I'm not as concerned about it. If the next set looks really weak and like it's not going to make a difference somehow, then I might be more concerned. But I think right now I'm feeling pretty confident in the way that the sets and the cards have been going for me. So
I do hope that some of the decks survive in ways like you're saying, like they'll be the same but different, but also doesn't like so if you really like the Zerg and the StarCraft stuff, you get to keep playing it, but not that it overshadows the new decks. I want to see more diverse meta come out, and that's really, really, really hard to do. So, and plus, can we make Paladin and Demon Hunter great again? That'd be great. Um,
This Paladin has been
but
so bad for the past 18 months.
it's been fine. It's been okay.
It's been pretty good for quite a while.
Hopefully we go back to pure stuff. I like the pure decks; those were fun. But
let's
you know what's
not.
weird about so this is completely totally aside. Like Alan's been just fine. It's been fun. It's been good. But some of the decks that you really want to play, they've also given us hints of decks that haven't been as good. Like the Earthen stuff never really panned out, and Paladin was good aside from that. But it's like I want to play the Earthens because that's the fun stuff. And they had a pretty cool concept for the Highlander with the card that the Mirages. And that never I mean that was okay. It never really panned out, and we ended up doing a lot of handbuff stuff all the time and all that. So is yeah, Pala has been fine, but it hasn't been diverse as we've gone through the different metas. Like Librams didn't really land. They've been okay. So and they've been better than Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter had, 2 months of shopping, and then outside of that, it's been kind of eh. So let's hope we get some of those again, and we'll see how it goes. I'm sure they're going to have the right mindset for this upcoming rotation. And speaking of mindset, that's our topic tonight. So Dragon Rider, why don't you take it away?
All right. Well, for anybody who has maybe not listened to the show before, when I come on the show, I've been talking about, it feels weird to say this has been a multi-year process now. Because like in 2023, I came on and I was doing like the basics, right? Like what resources do you have? Like, let's talk about Hearthstone and like the turns of Hearthstone, very basic level stuff. Then in 2024, I came on and talked about like intermediate stuff. Now we're in 2025 and we can talk about still maybe somewhat intermediate stuff, but we can really get to talk about some of this stuff that I feel like is more about you rather than the technical play. I think in a lot of those other topics, we've really kind of talked about like, this is how you can, maneuver this. And here's how you can think about managing your specific, turns or cards you're adding to your deck or whatever. But this is more about like you as a person and a player rather than what you're specifically doing in the game. So I wanted to talk about mindset, and honestly, this is a topic that we could probably break down into different like categories and probably do multiple episodes on, because mindset, like just saying mindset is super vague. But there's a lot of different things that we can talk about with mindset. So I wanted to start by talking about the growth mindset. Now, if anybody has been into any like personal development or any kind of thing like that, you've probably heard the term growth mindset, right? So this is basically where you have a mindset of focusing on growth and learning and not so much on things that are going wrong or like beating yourself up about mistakes or things that happen. It's about learning from things that happen rather than kind of beating yourself up about it. So I think that's the direction I kind of want to take today's episode, is really like talking about the mindset of actually when you want to grow and improve at the game, what kind of mindset do you need? And what kind of mindset should you have to actually learn and improve and get better? Um, so I want to open this up to you guys and ask, like, first of all, what kind of mindset, outside of like just saying growth mindset, but what kind of mindset, what kind of things have you guys used when you were learning and improving and getting better? And even still, because we're always learning and improving, right? So we're always getting better. But when you first were like jumping in and saying, okay, maybe I suck at this game, I want to get better, I want to hit legend for the first time, those kind of things, what kind of mindset things and what kind of mindset did you have when you first started on that journey?
I think for me, and this is with my own personality and my tendencies, I I personally like to start with just focusing on my play. I know that we talk a lot about, in Hearthstone, you need to, be paying attention to what your opponent is doing and what they might do and how that interacts with you. But there are some times where, especially if you're just trying to get your mindset correct and whatever that is, um, you're trying to, get that figured out. Sometimes it's best just to focus on what you can control. And that's something that I am big on, as someone who's used growth mindset as a teacher. We talk about that all the time. So I like to focus, a lot on Hearthstone. Okay, what can I control? What am I doing that I am in control of for this game? And how does that affect what I can do and choose to do? And then you're able to kind of see, those different play lines, those different ideas that then you can be like, okay, this is what I've been doing. How well has it worked? This is what I could do. Is it better? I don't know. Let's try it. So that's kind of my personal approach to it. I don't know if that's the best approach, but that's kind of just how my mind works personally.
Well, I started a podcast and started streaming. So that was my growth mindset. Actually, and the reason why I did start streaming was twofold. One, it was COVID and I wanted to, have some social interaction. But two, I wanted to get better at talking through my plays and maybe getting feedback. And that was a good way to do it, because you combine all the thing and people tell you, hey, you messed up. Pilot tells me all the time, I didn't like that play at all. I didn't like that turn. I don't like those last two turns. What are you doing, Tito? And a lot of times, depending on how much time lag there is between when you make your moves and when they see you make your moves and then comment on them, you don't always get the feedback in time to reconsider. But if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, for a while I was really concerned about pushing my rank and getting higher and all that, and to mixed results, right? And over the last few months, with things changing in my life and whatnot, my my time has been. I still play a really lot of Hearthstone. Like I play less Hearthstone than I have, but I'm sure I play more than most. And I've really kind of changed in the way that I am trying to just be a better player, and I'm not worried about the number because as I get better, that will take care of itself, and it'll come when I get better. When I will be like Pilot and be like an 11-star player every month when I am improved enough that happens and just organically. And I'm trying to do things like play more than just a couple decks because I usually get locked in on a couple decks. And once I find them, and not saying I won't do that again, like playing Pure Paladin and playing Shadow Priest for 2,000 games or whatever it was when I did those was so much fun, and I really enjoyed it. And you really, it's a whole different when you play one deck a lot, it's such a different experience because you know all the matchups, you know what's coming, you know what you need to draw, you know what's and it's I love that is so much fun, but it's also limiting, especially if you're doing things like THL, because you can't just play one deck, you can't just play two decks. You have to, and if you want to beat those other decks, you have to play them because you know how they lose. Because you can feel like, hey, every time I play Druid, I lose. So you play Druid, and then all of a sudden you're losing. You're like, oh, that's how I beat Druid. So I'm trying to become more well rounded, and I'm trying to become less concerned with results and more concerned with just how I'm doing, how I'm playing. And even if I'm not winning and I'm having fun, I'm still trying to learn. And I'm trying to make sure that, okay, next time, okay, that was a dumb mistake. I played my, like, I played the Zerg before I played the Infestor. I mean, I played the Infestor before I played the Zerg, so I couldn't put it between them. So I couldn't Death Growl and get both of them. It's just order and whatnot. So that I'm not sure if I'm answering the question correctly, but I'm trying to just be more focused on having fun, but also be mindful of the game that I'm in and improve there.
Yeah, no, I think both of you have definitely different approaches, but both very good approaches. And um for me, when I was really first starting to like get into Hearthstone and I was like, okay, I want to take this more seriously, and it's so crazy like looking back, right? Cuz at first I was like I would watch some of those tournaments and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, these casters are great. This is awesome. I love this. Like I want to do that." And now I'm doing that. But um getting there is a whole nother story, right? Like getting to that point, getting to legend, getting to 11x consistently, it's it's a whole process and a whole journey to get there. Um and how you approach it with your mindset is crucial. If you just sat there and said, "Oh, well, I just lost that game. That sucks," or and like didn't learn anything from it, just went to the next, and then, "Oh, I lost that game. Okay, that sucks." Or if you say, "Oh, well, they just got super lucky. Oh, I didn't draw the one card I needed." You're not really learning anything from those. You're just blaming other factors. And, maybe there are going to be some games that no matter how well you play, you're going to end up losing. Your opponent will top deck exactly what they need to turn the game around. That's going to happen. But if you learn how to start identifying where you can do things differently, instead of just automatically going to, well, they got lucky or I didn't get what I wanted, then that's a really good start. For me, instead of taking, I mean, I did kind of take the same approach as Tito in terms of like, I started streaming and doing my own content, like talking through my plays and stuff. But before I did that, I took the approach of, I want to learn from other people as much as possible. So like, and again, this was like the very, very early days of Hearthstone. This is when the most like people were involved in the game, I would say. And if you're listening to this podcast, first of all, congratulations. You're already on the path to learning and improving and getting better. But listen to other podcasts. I know Tito kind of already gave Pylet a little bit of grief for wearing a Coin Concede shirt, but you know what? We all support all of the other Hearthstone podcasts as well. And it's great to get involved in all of those communities and, listen to as many podcasts as you can, get as many different perspectives from different players, different play styles as you can, watch multiple streams, different types of streamers, listen to multiple different types of podcasts, all of that, get involved in like discords and communities and have various people like watch your replays. All of that kind of stuff is going to help you with that mindset of improving and learning. But it has to start with that learning, right? Like it has to start with that. I want to get better. I want to improve. I want to change what I've been doing. And again, this can come at any step. I think I might have talked about this. Again, this has been like a multi-year thing and I do multiple podcasts. So who knows what show I've talked about this on, but I kind of have this like circles. I don't know, Tito, have I talked about this on the show?
Maybe we've talked outside the show too. So
true. Okay. So the way that I think about it is you have different circles. That's like you might be in one circle. Let's say you are a player who plays 10 games a day and that's it. Maybe you don't even pay attention half the time. You're just like on your phone playing these 10 games while you watch TV and you're not even paying attention, right? That's your circle. Then you have this circle of people who are like legend, who are the hardcore, like, I'm going to listen to all the podcasts. I'm going to, have like 3 different streams open at all times and watch like 17,000 hours of Twitch in like one day, and like they're super hardcore, like really involved. And that's a different circle. Now, the circles can kind of overlap, right? There's a little bit of overlap in some of the circles as you go that kind of creates like a Venn diagram type of thing. But you can move between the circles depending on where you're at in your journey. And when you get from one side of the circle to the other, it's almost like steps where you might say, oh, I'm improving so much. I'm improving so much. I'm improving so much. And then you hit that other side. And then you're like, well, now compared to the people that I'm in this new circle with, I suck. I'm terrible. But again, then you have to start over essentially with the, okay, I'm learning, I'm getting better. Oh, now I'm in this new circle. Oh man, compared to the people in this circle, now I suck. Okay, I'm learning. And you just kind of have to keep doing that over and over. And you constantly have to learn and improve. And you, again, like this really just has to start with that learning mindset. You can't go into it if you want to get better. If you don't want to get better and you just want to be somebody who plays on your phone while you watch TV and you don't care about the rank or you don't care about the wins or you don't care about how you do, that's fine too. But I'm guessing that if you're listening to this podcast in the first place, you probably care at least somewhat about improving and learning and getting better.
And I was giving Pilot only joking grief about Quake and Seed. In fact, I recommend highly that if you have, some extra funds at the $10 level, I believe, maybe it's gone up since then, but at Quake and Seed, you get coachings with one of the hosts, and sometimes they bring in somebody else. But that is well worth it because even if it's not really coaching, they say coaching, but it's more like co-oping and bouncing ideas off each other, and you can kind of direct it how you want. And just so like I used to watch a lot of streams, and I still bring up a lot. I still like support people, like I'll have them on in other windows, but I watch a lot less streams now because I'm streaming, and so it's a whole different kind of thing. But I used to learn a lot from watching them, and I now learn a lot from people. Like I said, Pilot, and other people in my chat will be like, "I didn't like that play," and I would make the play, and I wouldn't even think that there was a different play. Like what do you mean you didn't like that play? Like what else was I going to do? And then it kind of gets your mind thinking and saying, "Oh, you could have done that. You could have done that." And to your point, Don, even if there was no way you were going to win a game, it doesn't mean you couldn't have played better that game. Like you could, yeah, I lost. I was going to lose no matter what because of how they drew. They got the nuts, whatever. But that doesn't mean that you played the first few turns well, or maybe you mulliganed poorly, or maybe you could have sequenced things better. You still would have lost, but maybe you would have lost better, or the mistakes you made you could have improved upon for the next one. And you got to remember that even in these matchups, even if you play well, 55% win rate is good, right? And you get there. So just don't discount the fact that you can improve in games, even when you don't think you could win, or even if it's just not in the cards for you.
Yeah. I kind of bouncing off of that, there are going to be games that are basically unwinnable, to where your only way that you would have won is if they went bottom right and hit concede for some reason. But I think the key to that growth is figuring out why that was unwinnable. Was it something you did, or was it something that they did, and just how the cards fell? And that's an important kind of process, because then sometimes you can identify, okay, yes, I made this play instead of this one, but would it have changed the outcome? Sometimes yes, a lot of times no in some of those. And then you can kind of learn what to do, but also then you can learn, okay, do I want to do a different play style? I remember back when Nagamage was, a big meta deck. I love that deck, and I played, much more of that deck than I normally do, because I normally bounce around. I had 100 games in a month on that deck, which is a lot for me. And I learned that deck inside and out up to like a 60% win rate. And I was winning all of my unfavorables because I figured out what I needed to do. Aggro DH was a huge problem for that deck. It was like a 30% matchup. And I was winning because I knew that I had to play differently, because I had to look for those cards that discovered or cleared or whatever. And you kind of find those lines just by trial and error. And that's what you have to do. And that's where, if you're focused on what can I do, what can I learn from this game, rather than did I win, did I lose, that's where you progress as a player quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think the last kind of subtopic, I'll say, of mindset that I want to talk about for tonight is the idea that outside factors, things going on in your life, can definitely impact your play. They can impact your mentality. If you go, I've shared this before. I think it's been a while since I've shared this, but there was one point when I was trying to improve, and this was really before I shifted my mindset. I would get so mad at like RNG. I would be like completely pissed off, like so mad. And I would let that affect my personal life outside of the game, right? Like I would just be so mad about the game that it started impacting my marriage. It impacted like my friendships. It impacted how I felt on a day-to-day basis. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm sure there's someone out there that can relate to that feeling, right? Like sometimes it just happens, whether you think that you're controlling it or not, it can happen. And I remember my husband at one point said, like, you have either got to change your attitude and your mindset on this game, or like stop playing the game, because it's like that, it's impacting you that much. And he could see how much it was like devastating me on a personal level too. And so I was like, well, I don't want to stop playing this game, right? Like, I don't want to stop playing. What do you mean stop playing the game? I can't do that. And so I decided, well, I'm going to change my mindset and I'm going to change my attitude about it. Tell you what, right after that was the first time I hit legend. Like that same month, like I just flipped my mindset and I turned it around and said, okay, instead of getting mad at the RNG and instead of getting pissed off, I'm just going to try to remain calm. I'm just going to try to think things through and be more like logical and like, in a way, like turn myself into Spock, right? Just go like full Spock, no emotion. Okay. And then all of a sudden it was like building a puzzle, and it was like, oh, okay, I'm figuring this out. Oh, okay, that's how I can do that. Oh, okay, I can do this thing. Hey, what if I put this card in, because I'm not really understanding this other card that people say is good, but I'm going to, you know what makes sense to me? Charge. So I'm going to put this charge Murloc in, because that was at the point when Murloc Paladin was very big. So yeah, this was like 8 years ago or something. Like, it's been a long time. But, so I was like, I don't really understand these Paladin secrets. Everybody says this little Murloc that gives you a secret is good. I don't get it. So I get charge. And guess what? I put that in and I was like, put this in my deck, summon it, and I can send it face. I get that. I understand that. But I figured it out. I hit legend. And then from there, it was like, oh, okay. When I don't let the game impact my outside life, or when I don't let my outside life impact me, like making decisions while I'm playing the game, things go a lot differently. And that's when I was able to start kind of building it from there and kind of going even more and more and more on that journey and learning more. And also diving into more podcast episodes, reading things like The Mental Game of Poker. Fantastic book. Definitely recommend that if you are interested in this kind of topic. There's 7 kinds of tilt. I think we might have talked about that before on this show, but yeah, if you just thought tilt was like just being angry, no, there's actually 7 different kinds of tilt. I love that topic. Love diving into that. So yeah, there's there definitely is kind of that aspect of like stuff outside the game or stuff inside the game can travel outside the game. So that's a big part of your mindset as well. If you want to improve, you really have to sit down and focus on it and kind of put everything else out of your mind.
I want to assure everybody, if, as Don mentioned before, that we've done a lot of these topics in the past, and I know you're not going to go through the back catalog and listen to all these episodes. We will revisit Tilt. We will revisit basics. We will revisit all these at some point because let's be honest, we're talking about a card game. There's only so many topics we can talk about, so we go back to them sometimes. But to your point, if if you had a bad day at work, you want to play Hearthstone, great. You may not do well. So have that in your mind that maybe I'll play Battlegrounds because I'm not too worried about my rank, or maybe I'll play casual, or I'm going to lose ranks, but I'm going to have fun. I want to blow off steam playing Hearthstone. That's fine, but keep in mind that it's not always easy to regulate, like Dawn was saying, because you may, you know, you're pissed off at your significant other because, something or other, they won't do the dishes, or they did the dishes wrong, or whatever it might be. They won't close the cabinets. I'm not talking about personal experience. So, you may have if you are tilted going into the game, you're probably going to carry that with you. Go play Slay the Spire. Go play some Hades 2. Go play something individually. Do whatever makes you happy. And if playing Hearthstone is what's going to help improve your mood, you still might lose. We talk about watching streamers, and you watch streamers to figure out, hey, how do I play this deck? How do I do this? But watch how streamers deal with losses, not Zeddy. Watch how streamers handle these things, and like they lose. I mean, once in a while, if there's like a game where it went a long time, they played really well, they felt like they should have won, or maybe they made a mistake and they're mad at themselves for it. Maybe you'll see a bit of tilt, but for the most part, 55% is a good win rate, like we said. So they know that, and they know how math works. And they just kind of, okay, we lost, move on to the next game. And if they're in a losing streak, maybe they get a little agitated. But in general, if you watch No Hands Gamer, you watch McBannerface, you watch, whoever, you're going to see them just kind of, okay, I lost, move on to the next game. Discuss maybe why they lost or what might have happened. Maybe like, oh, I don't think we could have won that. Or, yeah, if I would have done X, Y, and Z, maybe we would have had a better shot. But they're just calm. They move on. And it's hard to do. The best players in the world do it. If you want to be a better player, that's something to work on. Pilot, any thoughts?
Yeah. With the, outside life and Hearthstone life, crossing over, I noticed that I kind of keep just very general stats month to month of, what was my win rate, record, highest rank, finishing rank, stuff like that. And every year, my worst finishes are the months that I am busiest. July is always a bad finish for me because I'm a high school band director and we have marching band and I'm busy and tired all the time. Normally sometime in the winter is rough for me just because of musical or because of winter everything, and just how it is. So I've noticed that that's a trend that I would like to break, but it's just something that happens and I understand. And, if you are someone who likes to keep track of the stats, maybe you can see, oh, I always play really badly at this, general time. What's happening? That's why, if you're busy at work, if it's, you have a lot of family stuff going on, whatever, and understand maybe your play is not as good, but there's a reason for it because you only have so much mental capacity to give to the game. I also think that it's important for when you're going through things like that and trying to manage your tilt, finding that strategy that works for you. So I am a very analytical person. Even though I work in a creative job, I am analytical first, creative second. That's how my mind works. And I am very independent with that. I'm very stubborn and I like to figure it out on my own. I don't like posting replays. I don't like going to other people and saying, what can I do? I like figuring it out for myself. Sometimes that's not a good plan, because after you've lost 10 games in a row, then now you're down the spiral of I am terrible, I don't know what I'm doing, I just don't belong here, and all that stuff. I heard an interesting stat at my conference last week, that we were talking about, growth mindset and kind of building that within students, and 80% of self-talk is negative. You talking to yourself, 80% of what you say to yourself is negative. And think about that, how that affects your play. If you're always being like, oh, I'm going to play the wrong card, or, oh, they're going to have this, and then they do because you played into it, and trying to find what works for you to get kind of through that. Maybe it's, taking a lap around, the house or your apartment or something after you've lost a few games in a row, switching to a different game, switching to a different mode, finding a friend that can spectate or can hop on a Discord call just so you have somebody to talk to, because as soon as you're able to talk to someone about it, that normally calms a lot of people down. I've strongly considered that a few times. Just some of these Discord servers I'm in, most of them have a co-op channel, just saying, I am tilted. I just need someone to listen to me vent and keep my head on straight while I play these games. I don't need your help. I just need you to keep me in line. And that's might work for some people, and kind of finding what works for you and being able to manage that. Adding on to kind of the books that DragonRider had mentioned, one that I'm almost done reading that kind of relates is I'm reading The Inner Game of Tennis. And it has a lot of kind of that self-talk of, the self one that's always down on yourself and telling yourself what you're doing wrong and trying to force it to work, and that self two of just doing it and kind of naturally doing the thing. A lot of that's more related to a physical game or sport. But I was actually recommended to read it by music people, by my college band director recommended it to me for, a music kind of mindset thing. There's a lot that applies to, card games as well. I've got the mental game of poker on the table over there to eventually read, and a lot of other stuff that just kind of help you kind of keep those inner things in check.
When Pylet goes 11 stars, that helps a little bit, because you can play at a 45% win rate and still get to legend. My favorite thing to help Pylet along is when he's like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm 2-8 with this deck. I said, well, I'm 7-3. And that usually helps out quite a bit.
Yeah. Or the I go 3-0 and then we both go 0-5 and decide that was a bad deck. That's normally what happens.
Yeah. Hey, I got this deck. I'm 4-1. I play it. I win my first 2 games. And then like an hour later, we both have one, like a collective 1 game between us.
It happens.
All right, Don, any final thoughts on mindset before we wrap the show up? DragonRider, are you there?
I think we might have lost DragonRider, so I'll jump in for a little bit with some of my closing thoughts while we see if we can get her back. So as was mentioned, I think one of the most important things is if you're focusing on growth, then you need to make sure that you're focusing on skill. As soon as you focus on the number, everything that becomes the most important thing. I remember when I first started playing, I started in 2020, just after Ashes came out, and I was so frustrated and angry that I was stuck in gold. So I did eventually, I ended up getting that first legend a few months later, but I spent like a whole month of why can I not get past gold 5? And that final relief of, okay, I can do it. And then that, being calm from that and kind of soaring up, being able to figure out, okay, just calm down. Don't focus on the number. Just play games, learn from those games. And it's going to become so much easier. Most of the months that I have finished the best, I'm not thinking about my rank. I'm not caring about my rank. I'm just jamming games and having fun and learning from them. And then look, and it's just like, oh, I had like a 60% win rate this month and, climbed a little higher than I normally do.
And I have months too like that. Like I don't want to not make legend. Like that's like kind of a personal goal. I missed it once, not December, but I think the December before that. And since I've started making it, and it really kind of bothered me because I played a lot that month, and I don't know why I didn't make it. And I'm sure it was just my mindset, but like this, like some months it just comes naturally. Like I'm just kind of in a groove, and I'm like, oh hey, we were already legend, whatever. And then there's some months where it's like February 8th, and I'm like, I'm never gonna hit legend this month. Like I don't know what's going on, and it's like I have all that month. Like right now, I'm going on vacation for the last week, like we talked about. It's February 11th as we're recording this podcast. I'm Diamond 4, Diamond 3. I'm pretty confident right now that it won't be a problem because I I'm a legend player. I can get there, but um, I know when it gets to like the 15th, 16th, 17th, if I haven't lit legend yet, I'm gonna get kind of stressed about it. And I know I shouldn't, but it's there. Well, how about yourself, Don? You got any final thoughts on mindset before we close the show up?
Yeah. One more final story, kind of talking about the numbers and the rank. Um, I did at one point as well also tie my self-worth to my rank. Um, negative 10 out of 10. Do not recommend doing that. Do not, please do not do that. I can tell you it is extremely painful. It makes you feel like total crap, and it's not good. Please don't tie your self-worth to your rank or your wins, um, your stars, your star bonus, anything like that, because it's not worth it. And if something happened where like Hearthstone didn't exist tomorrow for some reason, right? Like you would still go on existing. So you're more than your rank. And I literally have that. Like I wrote a bunch of like affirmations on sticky notes and have them stuck around the house. And I literally wrote like, I am more than my rank. I'm more than my numbers. Like those are a couple of my sticky notes because it did impact my mental health for a while. Where if I didn't get legend or if I didn't hit a certain rank, or if I wasn't winning a certain amount or playing a certain amount, then that somehow meant that like I was worthless as a person. So definitely do not recommend doing that. And that's a big part of your mindset and that mentality as well.
Nope, makes a lot of sense. Anyway, I think it's time for a little dessert. That was a lot of information right there. So what I want to know, since we talked a little bit about the mini set and rotation coming up, I want to know what deck are you going to miss the most once rotation hits? And it could be something that maybe isn't prevalent right now, but maybe was prevalent in this past year. But like, what deck are you going to miss that you can't play anymore? Pilot?
Sif, 100%. I very much enjoyed Sif Mage. Normally not a huge combo player, but I've started to become a degenerate combo player more and more over the past year, I feel like. But Sif Mage actually took setup. It felt like a lot more time compared to some of the other ones. But I finally got the signature Sif like 5-6 months after it came out, and right after I think the deck got nerfed. I haven't been able to play it much. So anytime a Rainbow Mage deck comes up, I play it. I don't care how bad it is. I'm going to play at least 5 or 6 games of it just because I love that deck. Absolutely will miss having that card around.
Dawn, how about yourself?
Probably not like super top meta deck, but any sort of like Death Rattle Egg Hunter. Because with things like Yodeler rotating, it's going to be a lot harder to trigger those Death Rattles and do that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna miss those kinds of decks because I always enjoy that. I even kind of like Pilot was saying, like even if it's not good, I always try some variant of Egg or Death Rattle Hunter. I was trying it early on in the expansion with Gorm, the World Eater. Yeah, yep, fantastic. Gotta get those 12/12s, But that's what I'm going to miss the most.
Listener, if you listen to the show more than a few episodes, you might like us a little bit. If you give us a review so other people can find us, because we have guests every week. Great guests. Like I don't think we've had one guest where someone says that's not a good guest. I mean, one person said they didn't like Doc's brother because he wasn't really a Hearthstone person. But I'm okay with that. One person out of 99% of whatever didn't like one guest. So you leave us a review. It helps more people listen to the guests that we have on the show, and it's fantastic. So just take a minute if you can. We appreciate it. If not, it's fine. Tell a friend or just keep listening. It's all helpful.
You can ask Tito what his deck that he's going to miss is going to be, since he's leaving that as premium content, apparently. He didn't answer his own question.
I don't usually answer my own question, and I've been thinking about this And I'm like, I don't know what my answer is. It might be Mech Rogue. I really enjoyed Mech Rogue. Like,
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun, and I hated playing against it when I was trying to play other decks. But I'm gonna say my answer is going to be Earthen Paladin. Even though it was never good, Pilot can attest, I tried, and I tried
Yes.
again,
A lot.
and I tried again to my detriment. And somehow, given our previous conversations, I still find ways to hit legend. So you can play bad decks and still get there sometimes. Um, but Pilot, where can people find you on social media?
Primarily on Discord, and in a few different Hearthstone related Discords. My screen name is Pylet712. That's Pylet. You can also find me on Twitter. Don't check that very often, but I am there, and we'll see at the like every 3 weeks that I actually check my notifications and see that Tito's tagged me in an episode that I was guested on, and be like, oh hey, I did that thing. I should check that. Or lurking in Tito's stream.
He is there most of the time. Dragon Rider, how about yourself?
You can find me on Twitter at DawnieDK, DAWNIEDK. You can find me on Twitch, YouTube, Blue Sky, probably Instagram, TikTok, all those. I don't check a couple of those as often, but DragonRider TCCG. You can hear me on the Doctor 3 HS podcast, talking all things standard Hearthstone, and on the TCCG Roundtable, talking all things a bunch of different card games and more topics like this. So if you liked this, then definitely join us over there.
And next time the Master Store comes around, you'll probably see her casting because um, that's what she does. And you can find me at Tito Santana HS on most platforms. I haven't produced that much content on YouTube or TikTok or whatnot lately. Hopefully that's coming back at some point, but I don't want to. It's got to be fun and it's got to be worth putting the time and effort into. And with everything else that's been going on, really I haven't forced myself to do it because if I'm forcing myself to do it, what's the point? So we'll get back to it when the time is right, and hopefully we'll continue to grow our stream and whatnot. But Dragon Rider, where can we already asked you about where people find you, so I'm not going to really ask you about that again. So you guys shout outs this week or things you like to promote?
Yeah, so I'm going to shout out to both of you. Thank you so much for having me on this week. It was an absolute pleasure. Always enjoy being on the show and getting to talk about this stuff. As I say every time, I love getting to talk about like this kind of stuff, like this side of the game, and not as much of like the like playing itself. So always enjoy it. And a special shout out to Pilot because this is the first time we've actually gotten to like chat, and not just like, talk through streams and stuff like that and talk in text form. So it was awesome. I enjoyed it a lot.
I didn't realize you guys have never been on an episode together. Like you guys have both been on many episodes, so
Something's always come up where the couple times we were gonna be on the same episode. So yeah, this is the first time nothing happened that stopped us from both being on the show tonight.
how about yourself, Pilot? Do you have anything you like to shout out or promote?
Yeah, I was going to shout out Dragon Rider for the same thing. We've kind of dodged each other, the couple times we were supposed to, and chatted through streams or facing each other in THL and whatnot. So it's great to chat with you. Gonna shout out my cats for not completely disrupting me recording all night. I'm sure that these two saw them running around and saw me throw them off the table about 17 times during it. Thought that I was going to get taken out at one point when they started chasing each other, but hopefully, if you heard them, I'm sorry. But normally Tito's good at finding those things. And then finally, just shout out to my students because they've been working really hard lately, and they're just a fun group of kids and people to work with. They make my job very enjoyable. As much as they like to stress me out sometimes or poke fun at me, as most band kids do, it's okay because I did the same thing to my band directors all the time. But they're just a really good group of kids and people. So shout out to them.
And I'm gonna shout out Ridiculous Hat. It seems like he's tweeting more back to like his normal kind, not normal cadence, but no one can keep up with his normal cadence. But it felt like he kind of pulled back from social media a little bit over time and with very good reasons. But I just feel like he's kind of back to being kind of had a little bit, and we've missed that. So I am glad to see that back, and I'm gonna also shout out Pace. Not that he's done anything, just he's a good guy, and we like him on the show here. So hi Pace, hope you're doing well. But I think we're toast. We'll see y'all later.
See ya.
Slide two brothers meet one another when they slide up to the mic. It's bread and butter with one another. Let's start up that recording light.